You know, I never really thought of the possibility of having multiple of me, like clones of me. That would probably be kind of annoying, huh? Nah, can't be. No way. Yeah, pretty annoying. What's going on, guys? James here, and thank you so much for tuning into Chapter 2 of the Star Wars Rewind series here at Real James. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's me basically rewatching all the way from Episode 1 to The Last Jedi, up until the release of The Rise of Skywalker. Now, you don't want to miss out, so go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with all your friends in the galaxy. Oh, and follow along in the comments with me. Let me know where these movies rank for you. Do you love them, or do you hate them? I remember as a kid being really excited for Episode 2, but when I rewatched it, I'm like, why was I excited for this? But let's stop and hop right into the review of Star Wars Episode 2. Now, the biggest questions that I had going into Star Wars Episode 2 were, 1, can George Lucas improve upon the script from the first film because it wasn't that great? And 2, is this relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan going to really pay off by the end of the film? Now, the movie answers both of those questions, and one better than the other. Let's first start off with Anakin and Obi-Wan. The adult version of Anakin is played by Hayden Christensen, and let me tell you guys, there's a lot of hate that he's gotten for these prequel movies, but I don't necessarily dislike his character. I think that he does a decent job at bringing across a very emotional character that is still battling with whether or not he wants to be a Jedi or fall prey to the dark side. And then there's Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by actor Ewan McGregor, who proves to be the best part of the prequel trilogy, consistently alongside, Ian McDiarmid and, of course, John Williams composing the music. Ewan McGregor does this thing where he makes every single conversation feel very important. So when him and Hayden Christensen are side by side, it's almost like he improves the acting of Hayden. But yeah, you catch my drift, right? There's some good moments and some bad moments, just like there were in Episode 1. Now, the movie immediately did grab my attention because it started off with a literal bang. Senator Amidala's decoy dies in an explosion. And it kind of sucks, but then you kind of realize it's both Natalie Portman anyway, so you're still getting her as an actor, and she's actually not that bad in this film. I noticed that the visual effects were slightly better than Episode 1, but would I have rathered practical effects? Of course I would have, because I hated the fact that George Lucas departed entirely from practical effects. Sure, there are a couple moments where you notice, okay, actual makeup, and it looks pretty cool and fun, but it didn't really feel like Star Wars in some of these big battle sequences because there was a lack of practical effects. It felt so, I don't know, artificial, superficial, what's the word I'm looking for? It was not real, is what it felt like. And I get it, this is an intergalactic battle, but it should have felt a little bit more natural. Now, I know I mentioned Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin's relationship being the focus of this movie, but there's another relationship that really takes a lot of screen time, and that's Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen. Senator Amidala is really struggling with politics and, her love for Anakin. So you spend a lot of time with them in rooms together, the melodramatics come to play, the romantic side of this plot. It gets a little much. I don't know. I don't think I really care too much for the melodramatic appeal to this movie, but it was kind of nice to see a dynamic being added to both characters. But then you get into the second half of the movie and realize, oh my god, okay, the dialogue is still very forced, just like it was in Episode 1. And it's weird because, okay, alright, I'm just gonna say it. Hayden Christensen was a little creepy in some moments. Now, I don't know if that's how George Lucas wrote his character, but it was kind of weird how he kind of forced Senator Amidala into certain things. It was weird. It's funny, speaking of melodramatics, I literally wrote here, the melodramatics are strong with this one. Now, there is a new addition to the prequel trilogies, and that's Christopher Lee's character, Count Dooku. I like Christopher Lee a ton. In this movie, he seemed a little two-dimensional, and that's probably the way the character was written, to be really evil all the time, always menacing. There was really no layered approach to his character. Not that I hated it, but it kind of felt vanilla to me. It was just, you could put anyone else in that role and it wouldn't have mattered. So Christopher Lee didn't necessarily make it his own, unlike his counterpart Ian McDiarmid, who makes his role as Supreme Chancellor very, very impactful. Oh, and speaking of characters, I never realized this, you guys. Why is Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu underplayed so much in these prequel movies so far? I mean, even from Episode 1 to 2, it feels like, yeah, he got a little bit more shine in Episode 2, but why not give him more speaking parts? He's one of the better actors in this entire prequel trilogy. Like, come on, George. Now, there is something that Episode 2 does much better than Episode 1, and that's feel larger than life. I mean, my goodness, the scale is much bigger here. The battles feel more intense, and I think that there's a lot more that George Lucas had to play with, especially with the clone army. Speaking of the clone army, yes, we get an explanation about why the clones became a thing, and, the Fett family, and, Boba, and it can be problematic because it's over-explaining yet again, but I didn't mind the midichlorian thing, and I didn't mind the whole, clone clone army reasoning, and it was fine for me, but I get why some people could be a little upset at what George Lucas did with this part of the story. Now, as I got to the 2-hour mark, I genuinely felt that this movie was way too bloated for its own good, and I think that's really the consensus for a lot of fans, is that, okay, listen, this is probably a good film if you trim off some fat, but the fact that they played more to the melodramatic appeal and all these big action moments, which I kind of felt a little bored by towards the end of the movie, it didn't really work too well in its favor. I think Attack of the Clones could have been a really good film, but I don't know if the writing was strong enough and the foundation was firm enough. Now, there is, of course, a bright spot in all of this, and that's the setup for episode 3. As a kid, I didn't know we were getting an episode 3 because I was really oblivious to this whole, like, you know, release schedule. I understand why the film ended the way it did, and I know why we're kind of left hanging on some of the bigger moments in the movie, but hey, I don't know if it's a good enough film on its own. So guys, overall, yeah, Attack of the Clones might not be the best in the prequel trilogy. Maybe my opinion changes, but right now it's way behind The Phantom Menace. Like, it's definitely a downgrade in quality. Yeah, you get all the flashy moments in Attack of the Clones, but all the substance really isn't there. Oh, but shout out my boy Yoda, because he got some more moments here in that final battle with Dooku. Oh, it was wild, y'all. Alrighty, guys, so those are my thoughts and emotions on Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. If you're enjoying everything about Star Wars Rewind, this new series we're doing here at the channel, don't forget to go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel. Also, tap the bell next to it so you get notified every time I drop something new. Oh, and like this video. Don't forget to share with your friends all across the galaxy, and in the comments below, let me know what you think of Star Wars Episode 2. Is it really better than Phantom Menace, and maybe I'm missing something? Or is it way behind Episode 1? Alrighty, guys, thanks so much again for watching this review, and I'll catch you at the next rewatch. Because it's not a screening, and I can't use my traditional outro, I'm gonna stop now.